What most people don't realize is that words are not just sound. They are tools that can either build intimacy or quietly chip away at it. In every conversation, whether it's a first date, a deep relationship talk, or a simple check-in, you are planting seeds. The only question is, are you planting seeds of connection or seeds of confusion, frustration, and disconnect? Let's take a real-world example. Someone texts you, "Hey, what's up?" You respond with a "not much." Now technically, you've answered. But emotionally, you've said nothing. Contrast that with, "I've had a hectic day. Work's been crazy. I could use a break. How's your day going?" Same effort, entirely different emotional impact. Why? Because words shape the emotional climate of a relationship. That second version creates a bridge, an opportunity for emotional exchange. And this applies not just in casual moments, but in critical ones. When someone upsets you, how you respond isn't just about the event itself. It's about the narrative you both create around how you handle conflict. If you say, "You always do this," it turns into an attack. The other person gets defensive, but if instead you say, "When that happened, I felt unheard. Can we talk about it?" Now you're giving the relationship room to grow. You're not tearing down. You're inviting collaboration. We have this myth that chemistry alone sustains a relationship. But chemistry without communication is like having the ingredients for a cake and never turning on the oven. You need words to create structure, to bring out flavor, to let someone know what you need, what lights you up, what scares you, and what makes you feel safe. The quality of your love life is directly proportional to the quality of the conversations you're willing to have. And the mistake most people make, waiting until things are bad before they start communicating well. The couples who thrive don't do damage control, they do daily maintenance. They say a thank you, "I appreciate you, I miss you, and this matters to me" before it's an issue. They know that language is emotional oxygen. Stop speaking, and the relationship starts to suffocate. If you're not saying what you mean, you're gambling with your connection. If you're hiding your needs to avoid conflict, you're burying the very thing that could bring you closer. Language is how you tell the truth. Language is how you create safety. Language is how you build love, one word at a time. So yes, the words you choose, and when and how you say them, are the unseen architecture of your love life. Master your language, and you don't just improve communication. You create a relationship that can actually breathe, stretch, and grow. One of the most powerful, disarming, and connective phrases you can say in a relationship, whether you're on your third date or 3 years in, is this: "I need your help with something." It might sound basic, but in that one sentence, you're doing something extraordinary. You're creating a moment of vulnerability, cooperation, and shared purpose. You're not nagging. You're not blaming. You're inviting someone into your world. Let's be honest. So many conflicts in relationships come from this place of subtle resistance. Resistance to asking for help. Resistance to admitting we're struggling. Resistance to needing anything because we think it makes us look weak or too much. And the irony is that resistance blocks the very intimacy we crave because we want closeness, but we avoid the language that actually creates it. "I need your help with something" does the opposite. It's a request, not a demand. It activates empathy, not defensiveness. It gives someone a role in your emotional world, which, believe it or not, is a compliment. It tells them, "You matter enough to me that I'm letting you in." Imagine you're dating someone who's been emotionally distant lately. You could say, "Oh, why are you so cold lately?" And they'll likely pull back even more. But try instead, "I need your help with something. I've been feeling a bit off, and I'd love for us to reconnect more this week. Can we plan something together?" Now you've taken a potential fight and turned it into an invitation. You've brought them into your emotional reality and given them a way to show up for you. Here's what else that phrase does. It creates a safe frame. Relationships are full of tension points. When you need more affection, when you want better communication, when you're feeling insecure, most people don't know how to express those things without sounding needy or dramatic. But starting with "I need your help with something" creates a soft landing. It's a way of saying, "I trust you to meet me here," instead of just dropping emotional weight on someone's shoulders. And people want to help. If they feel like helping doesn't mean being judged, blamed, or set up to fail. That's why this phrase works so beautifully, so beautifully. It gives them a role, a purpose, a way to support you that feels rewarding, not burdensome. The next time something's off, or you feel distance creeping in, don't wait for resentment to build. Don't overthink the perfect speech. Just lean in and say it. I need your help with something. Say it gently, say it with warmth, and let the conversation unfold from that place. It's not just a phrase, it's a mindset shift. It's the difference between proving you're fine and letting someone love you. And that, right there, is what transforms a connection from fragile to real to real. One of the biggest myths in dating and relationships is that if you show up perfectly, always confident, always composed, always knowing the right thing to say, you'll win someone's heart. But the truth is, perfection isn't attractive. What's attractive is connection, and connection doesn't come from polished edges. It comes from moments of authenticity, vulnerability, and being deeply, unapologetically human. Think about it. Have you ever had a conversation where someone seemed too smooth, too rehearsed? It feels like they're performing, not relating. You might be impressed, but you're not moved. Because the spark we crave in relationships doesn't come from someone saying all the right things. It comes when we feel like we're seeing the real person behind the words. Trying to be perfect creates emotional distance. It makes the other person feel like they're talking to a version of you, not you. When you're overly focused on looking good or being impressive, you're not really present. You're editing yourself in real time. And guess what? The other person can sense that. Even if they can't articulate it, they feel the lack of emotional availability. Now let's flip the script. Imagine you're on a date and someone says, "I'm kind of nervous, I haven't been on a date in a while." That one sentence instantly brings down the walls. Why? Because it's honest, it's relatable. It tells the other person, you don't have to be perfect with me either. That's where the magic happens. In fact, some of the most powerful moments in love happen when we let go of the need to impress and instead choose to express. When we say, "That hurt," instead of pretending we're fine. When we laugh at ourselves, admit we don't have all the answers, or share a story that shows we've made mistakes. Those are the moments that stick. Those are the moments that build intimacy. What most people don't realize is that perfection is intimidating, but vulnerability is magnetic. People fall in love with your quirks, your fears, your passion, your honesty, not your ability to keep it all together. And ironically, when you stop trying to be perfect, you become more attractive. Because you're grounded, you're real. You're someone people feel safe with, someone they can trust, someone who gives them permission to show up as they are. So the next time you're tempted to hide your messy parts, your weird humor, your anxious thoughts, or the fact that you still Google what to text back, don't. That's not the stuff you need to hide. That's the stuff that makes you lovable. You want a better love life? Stop trying to be perfect. Start being real. Because when you're real, you don't just find love. You find the kind of love that lasts. One of the biggest silent killers in relationships isn't cheating or distance or even lack of chemistry. It's assumption. The assumption that your partner should just know what you want. The belief that if they really loved you, they would magically read your mind, interpret your moods, and anticipate your needs without you ever having to say a word. It sounds romantic in theory, but in reality, it's a fast track to frustration, miscommunication, and unmet expectations. Here's the truth. Even the most emotionally intelligent person cannot read your mind. They might guess, they might try, but no one, no matter how much they care about you, is going to get it right every time. And when we rely on assumptions instead of actual communication, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment that we created. Take this example. You're upset because your partner didn't text you goodnight. Instead of telling them, you go cold, you withdraw. You wait for them to figure out why you're suddenly acting distant. Now, from their perspective, you're just being moody. But in your head, the story is, they didn't think of me. I don't matter. You assume they should already know. And that's the trap. When we assume, we turn relationships into a silent guessing game. We withhold the truth and expect the other person to somehow win a game they didn't know they were playing. The result? Both people feel disconnected and confused. But when you ask instead of assume, you bring clarity. You empower the other person to show up for you in a meaningful way. You're not making them guess, you're giving them the gift of understanding you better. Imagine instead saying, can I ask you for something that would make me feel really good? When we're not together, a quick message goodnight would mean a lot to me. That's not needy. That's emotionally mature. That's leadership in love. Asking doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Because when you ask, you open the door for better communication, shared standards, and deeper connection. You're saying, this is how I feel seen, instead of waiting for someone to guess the right answer in the dark. And on the flip side, it's just as important to ask them, what makes you feel appreciated? How do you like to be supported when you're stressed? That's how emotional intimacy is built, not through silent assumptions, but through open curiosity. So the next time you're tempted to think, they should already know, catch yourself. Maybe they don't. And maybe, just maybe, they're waiting for you to ask. One of the most empowering things you can do for your love life is to get clear on your standards and express them early. Not in a controlling, demanding, or defensive way, but in a calm, unapologetic, and confident way. Most people wait until their boundaries have been crossed or their needs have gone unmet for far too long before they finally speak up. By then, the resentment has built, the dynamic has soured, and the honesty comes out like an explosion instead of a conversation. But what if you set the tone from the beginning? Standards are not ultimatums. They're not threats. They're simply the baseline for how you want to be treated and what kind of relationship you're available for. And the key is to present them without fear, without emotional charge, and without apology. Because when you express your standards calmly and early, you're giving someone the opportunity to rise to the occasion or opt out. Either way, you win. Why? Because you're not wasting time pretending to be okay with things that you're not okay with. Let's say you value consistency and clear communication. Early on in a connection, you might say something like, I really value people who follow through on their word. A.k.a. I feel safest in relationships where there's clarity and consistency. That one sentence reveals your standard without blaming anyone. You're not saying you never text back. You're saying, this is what works for me. It's subtle, but it's powerful. When you withhold your standards out of fear of being too much, too intense, or scaring someone away, you don't actually keep the connection. You just delay the inevitable. Because eventually, your real needs will surface. And if you've been acting like those needs don't exist, the other person won't know how to meet them. Or worse, they'll feel misled. Setting a standard is not about testing people. It's about respecting yourself. You're showing someone how to treat you, not with ultimatums, but through clarity and follow-through. And here's the beautiful part. When you express a standard and someone rises to meet it, you create trust, mutual respect, alignment. And when someone walks away because they're not willing or able to meet your standard, that's not rejection. That's redirection. That's emotional time saving. And this doesn't just apply to big things like exclusivity or long-term goals. It applies to the everyday tone of the relationship. Do you want kindness, humor, depth? Express it. Model it. Say it. People often say, I don't want to scare them off. But if your honesty scares someone off, it wasn't a fit to begin with. So if you want a better love life, stop editing yourself for approval. Start expressing your standards with grace and certainty. Not to control the other person, but to honor yourself. That's not high maintenance. That's high value. Most people underestimate how powerful their words can be in shaping the emotional tone of their relationship, not just during conflict, but in everyday moments. What you affirm grows. What you reinforce through language becomes part of your connection. This is why one of the most underrated tools in improving your love life is learning how to express positive reinforcement, not just in grand romantic gestures, but in the subtle, daily affirmations that tell your partner, I see you, I value you, and this matters to me. A simple phrase like, I love when you can do more to deepen a connection than a dozen vague compliments or surface-level reassurances. It's specific, it's clear, and it directs your partner's attention toward the kind of behavior that strengthens the relationship. Instead of focusing on what they're not doing, you're highlighting what's working. That makes someone feel safe, appreciated, and more willing to repeat those positive behaviors. For example, let's say your partner plans a thoughtful date night. Instead of just saying a thanks, you could say, I love when you take the lead on plans. It makes me feel cared for. That one sentence is doing multiple things. It's expressing gratitude, reinforcing a positive behavior, and letting them know how their actions impact you emotionally. And that's far more effective than saying, you never do anything romantic. which only triggers defensiveness and discouragement. This kind of affirmation works especially well when things have been tense or distant. Because people naturally crave reassurance, they want to know they're doing something right. Often in relationships, we become hyper-focused on what's missing or wrong, and we forget to vocalize what's working. Over time, that erodes connection. Your partner begins to feel like no matter what they do, it won't be enough. But when you practice affirming what you love and appreciate, you create an environment of emotional safety. And in that environment, people want to do more for you. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or avoiding difficult conversations. But it does mean balancing those conversations with positive emotional feedback. If the only time your partner hears you express yourself is when you're frustrated, it creates a dynamic where communication feels like criticism. But if they also hear, "I really felt connected when we had that talk yesterday," or "I loved how present you were this weekend," they begin to associate communication with closeness, not conflict. Positive affirmation is not manipulation. It's direction. It's direction. It's a way of telling someone, "more of this, please." And that's far more effective than silent resentment or passive-aggressive hints. So if you want a better love life, don't just tell your partner what's wrong. Tell them what's right. Tell them what lights you up. Tell them what you cherish. Because love isn't just about how you feel. It's about what you choose to say when it matters most. Emotional reactivity is when your buttons get pushed and you say or do the first thing that comes to mind, often out of anger, fear, or insecurity. And while those reactions may feel justified in the moment, they rarely lead to the outcome you truly want. They create drama, not connection. Distance, not resolution. Let's take a common example. Someone you're dating takes hours to reply to a message. Your first reaction might be, "Ooh, they're ignoring me. I'm not a priority. I knew it." So you either snap back with a passive-aggressive message or go silent to make a point. But that reaction isn't about them. It's about your fear. It's about your past. And in reacting, you're not actually addressing the issue. You're just feeding the insecurity. Now, imagine if instead you paused and asked yourself, "What's the story I'm telling myself right now?" That moment of self-awareness creates space. And in that space, you can choose a response that reflects not just your emotion, but your values. You might still address the behavior, but you'll do it from a grounded place, instead of saying, "Oh, why are you ignoring me?" You say, "I felt a little off when I didn't hear from you. I just want to stay connected. Is everything okay?" That's a completely different energy, and it invites a conversation instead of a conflict. Intentional responses are about choosing your impact. They don't require you to suppress your feelings, but they do require you to slow down long enough to decide how you want to show up. Because when you're reactive, the situation controls you. But when you're intentional, you take the lead. And this isn't about being fake or robotic. It's about being emotionally intelligent. Emotional maturity means you can feel deeply, but still communicate clearly. It means you can be hurt without becoming hurtful. It means you don't let temporary emotions create permanent damage. When you're intentional, you also model behavior. You show the other person what healthy communication looks like. You teach them, without saying a word, that this is a space where calm, honesty, and curiosity are the norm. And that influence is powerful. It changes the dynamic of the entire relationship. The truth is, in love, it's not just about what happens, it's about how you respond to what happens. And the people who build lasting, fulfilling relationships aren't the ones who never get triggered. They're the ones who've trained themselves to respond with clarity, not chaos. So the next time you feel the impulse to fire off a reaction, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what outcome do I actually want? Then respond in a way that gets you closer to that, not further. That's not weakness. Would you like me to continue with the final keynote now? One of the most powerful things you can say in your love life isn't some clever line or deep confession. It's simply, "This is what I'm looking for," because clarity is magnetic. When you know what you want and you're not afraid to say it, you filter out the wrong people faster, and you attract those who are aligned with your vision for love. But most people avoid this kind of honesty. Why? Because they're afraid it will scare someone away. They think if they're too direct, they'll come off as intense or demanding, or like they're rushing things. So instead, they stay vague. They go with the flow. They wait and see. But in that waiting, they lose precious time. And worse, they often find themselves emotionally invested in someone who never wanted the same thing in the first place. Clarity isn't pressure, it's leadership. When you say, this is the kind of relationship I want to build, you're not saying, it has to be with you. You're saying, this is where I'm headed, and I only want to invest in people who are heading in a similar direction. That's not desperation, that's self-respect. That's self. Think about it this way. If you were starting a business and looking for a partner, would you avoid telling them your vision just because you were afraid of scaring them off? Of course not. You'd lay out your goals, your values, your timeline. Why? Because you know that alignment from the start saves both of you time and heartache. Love is no different. It's a partnership, and the clearer you are about what you're building, the more likely you are to attract someone who wants to build it with you. Saying, I'm looking for something meaningful, or I want to build a relationship with depth and commitment, doesn't make you needy, it makes you intentional. And when you say it calmly and confidently, without attaching it to the other person, it actually earns you more respect, not less. It shows you're not chasing, you're choosing. And if someone hears that and pulls away, that's a win. Because now you know early that they weren't aligned. You haven't lost anything. In fact, you've just saved yourself months of confusion and mixed signals. But if someone hears your clarity and says, that's what I'm looking for too, now you've got something real to work with. Now you're not just guessing, you're aligned. And alignment is what creates momentum in a relationship. Without it, you're just floating, hoping they eventually want what you want. But when you're clear, you stop floating and start steering. So don't shy away from clarity. It's not the thing that breaks connections. It's the thing that reveals which connections are actually worth your time. And in the world of love, that is everything. Would you like a conclusion that ties all 8 keynotes together into a final message or closing speech? Let's be honest. Love in today's world can feel confusing, exhausting, and even disheartening at times, but it doesn't have to be. Because when you shift from passively waiting for love to happen to actively showing up for it with intention, clarity, and emotional leadership, everything changes. This entire journey comes down to a simple but profound truth. Love doesn't thrive on luck. It thrives on skill. And those skills aren't about playing games, pretending to be someone you're not, or memorizing the perfect script. They're about learning how to show up vulnerably, honestly, and powerfully. It's about saying what you feel without fear of being too much. It's about asking for what you want instead of hoping someone will guess. It's about being willing to walk away from what's not aligned, not out of bitterness, but out of deep self-worth. It's about reinforcing what's beautiful in your connection, not just pointing out what's broken. It's about choosing intentional responses instead of emotional reactions. And most of all, it's about knowing that the right person won't be scared off by your standards. They'll be drawn to them. So if you truly want a better love life, stop waiting for love to rescue you. Step up and lead in love. Speak clearly. Show up fully. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And don't settle for relationships that leave you guessing or shrinking. Because the love you crave doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being real. Just say this. This is who I am. This is what I want. And I'm not afraid to ask for it. That's not just how you attract love. That's how you create the kind of love that lasts.